Do it without a connection? Okay. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hi, and welcome to Digital Defense, Bloomberg News' cybersecurity show that we do here every week. As always, this is a highly interactive show. At least we aim for it to be. So if you have any questions, please feel free to write in wherever you're watching the show. We are streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and as of this week, Periscope. My name is Jordan Robertson. I'm a cybersecurity reporter for Bloomberg here in Washington, D.C. And this week, I wanted to talk to you about a big investigation that we just published in Bloomberg Business Week regarding a computer exploit sale gone horribly wrong in Mauritania, in West Africa. It's a really interesting tale and a really interesting story that shows kind of the danger of this new form of arms trade. We tend to think of arms trafficking as the physical kind, weaponry. But there's a new type of arms trade, and that's computer exploits. We've seen some of this with, Edward Snowden's revelations about National Security Agency spying. Spy agencies for many years now have used computer exploits to break into other governments' networks and private companies' networks and things like that. And where our story took us, you can find it actually on my Twitter account. That's at JordanR1000, at JordanR1000. The story is pinned there. It's called the Mauritania exploit, and where our story takes us is to two places. Our story takes us to New Delhi, where the story begins in India, and where the story ends is Mauritania in West Africa. And let me show you a couple of pictures here that might help illustrate what we're talking about. So I want to introduce you to a couple of people that are instrumental in this story. This is Manish Kumar. He is a 30-year-old Indian computer exploit dealer. Grew up a few hours outside of New Delhi. This summer I went to visit Manish in New Delhi when he was back home visiting family. He now lives in Germany. And this is Manish, this is his brother, and this is an investor in Manish's company. And we're all sitting here in New Delhi. Now what Manish does is he sells computer exploits to governments. Post Edward Snowden, guys like this have really, there have been a lot more people like this cropping up wanting to get in on this business of selling, hacking tools to governments. It's pretty hard to sell hacking tools to the U.S. government. There are lots of defense contractors who have long-standing businesses doing that. However, there are many more governments around the world who don't have those connections and who need guys like this, who they meet at military conferences, surveillance conferences, things like that. And where this story takes us is, in 2014, Manish Kumar is at a government military sales conference in Doha and meets representatives of the Mauritanian government. Now, many people don't know where Mauritania is. This is where Mauritania is. Country on the western coast of Africa. It's a pretty small country. There are only 4 million people in Mauritania, and most of them live on the far western side here in the capital called Nouakchott. And that's where Manish found himself after meeting representatives of the Mauritanian presidency, actually, signing a $2.5 million deal to supply computer exploits to the Mauritanian government. Now, this wasn't just any computer exploit, though. This was what they call a silent SMS exploit. And what that means is, a lot of hacking attacks that you can think of, including like the attack on the DNC, Russia's attempts to influence, U.S. elections. Those are all hacks that involve people doing something, people clicking on something that they shouldn't, people entering their passwords into, bogus sign-in forms for Gmail and things like that. What a silent SMS exploit does is it allows a government or any other attacker who has this capability to send code to anybody's mobile phone whose number they have and remotely inject malicious code into those phones. No user interaction required. This is a really big deal, and this was something that Mauritania really wanted, and that Manish and his company, which is called Wolf Intelligence, had, or claimed to have. Certainly in its marketing materials and promotional materials, this was a capability that Wolf Intelligence touted pretty loudly. Now why this is important to to viewers is guys like Manish and guys in companies like Wolf Intelligence, they're going around the world now selling really sophisticated hacking tools to foreign governments. In this case, Mauritania. Now, Mauritania is a U.S. ally. We supply them with arms and training, counterterrorism for counterterrorism operations. However, Mauritania is not a nice country. They have a history of human rights abuses, disappearing journalists, disappearing human rights activists, disappearing political opponents. It's one of the few countries on earth where slavery, is still a going concern. There have been 10 coups or attempted coups since the country gained independence in 1960. So this is a country where, in the wrong hands, these hacking tools can do a lot of damage and repress free speech and things like that. So the story takes a kind of crazy turn that I will fill you in on after we take some questions here. But just keep that in mind. Manish Kumar winds up in Mauritania. $2.5 million deal is on the table. It gets signed. Now he's got to deliver this really incredible hacking tool that he's promised them. I do want to go to some of these questions first, and we'll get back to the story. Question that came in is: has the Trump administration expressed any thoughts on forming an international cyber warfare framework? If I'm understanding the question, correctly, Trump has been pretty opaque about his views on cyber warfare and the use of cyber weapons like the kind that Wolf Intelligence was selling in Africa. There is this idea that he's going to issue, he's going to direct federal agencies to look for vulnerabilities in our networks and try to do more on the defensive side. But, in answering this question, I think we can take a cue from, his general stance, toward military matters, which is that he's pretty hawkish on using the military as an expression of U.S. strength abroad. And that does include now, a really vast and sophisticated, cyber arsenal. And these can be covert actions for spying or, secretly damaging equipment, inside enemy networks, or they can be more overt, which is, doing damage to enemy networks in a way that very clearly says, we're the U.S., don't mess with us. Look what we just did to your systems. That's what a lot of experts worry about, though, in that space is escalating responses. So no, Trump hasn't said anything specific about any international cyber warfare frameworks, but this is a question that presidents increasingly have to grapple with, as our cyber arsenal expands. Next question here is, how do you think Trump would have reacted to Edward Snowden and the NSA leaks? Well, this is an interesting question because, Trump's stance on this space has changed over time. If you recall the early days of the election and the campaign, WikiLeaks and guys like Edward Snowden, people like Chelsea Manning, who President Obama pardoned, these were traitors to the country, and many people believe that, especially in government, especially in intelligence circles. That position may have shifted a little bit toward the end of the election, when WikiLeaks was publishing information that was damaging to his opponent, and he became a proponent of WikiLeaks and this idea that hacked information could be useful. So how would Trump have reacted to Edward Snowden if it happened on his watch? I imagine he would have been pretty hawkish about hunting Edward Snowden down and trying to penalize him, if that information was, either embarrassing or damaging to his administration in any way. I think WikiLeaks was a special case where it involved a distinct political advantage, and thus it was to his benefit to, to kind of warm to this idea that, sites like WikiLeaks that leak hacked information could be useful. I don't think that's his position now on Snowden, but we'll see. So I want to take you back again to this story. So where I left off, and again, for those of you just joining us, this is a big investigation that Bloomberg Businessweek just put out that we worked on for a number of months. You can find the link on my Twitter page, which is @JordanR1000, JORDANR1000. The link is pinned there to this story. But this is, the story is called the Mauritania exploit, and where we left off was Manish Kumar and his company, Wolf Intelligence, was in Mauritania, a country on the western coast of Africa, had just signed a $2.5 million deal to supply them with a very advanced form of hacking tool called a silent SMS exploit. I don't want to spoil all the surprises for you in the story. We think it's quite a revealing and engaging tale. But what I'll tell you very simply is Manish didn't have the exploit. He just got signed a $2.5 million contract for an exploit that is very valuable, that many, many government agencies would love to have. He didn't have it. He knew who had it, but he'd have to pay that person $1 million. I'll shorten the story here for you, but basically the way this deal worked was he was paid $500,000 up front, to begin the process of installing the software. The problem was he needed $1 million to go pay an Israeli named Dudi Sternberg for this computer exploit that the Mauritanian government wanted. A series of really disastrous things happened subsequent to that. Long story short, Manish flies to Tel Aviv twice, tries to negotiate for this exploit with this Israeli exploit dealer, doesn't get it, and where we're left is the Mauritanian government demanded that Wolf Intelligence place a person in Mauritania always until this deal was done. If they expected any more money, and by that point Manish had been paid $1.5 million, but there was a dispute with his distributor over how much he had. Point was he never had the $1 million, never had the exploit, and the Mauritanian government said, if you want the rest of the money on this contract, you need to leave a person in Mauritania, always as human collateral for this deal, which is behavior we see out of like drug kingpins. And I want to introduce you to the person who was that human collateral and in fact is still there in Mauritania, has been arrested. It's been over 1.5 years. He's been detained inside a Mauritanian government military barracks, as again collateral for this deal that has not been resolved. He's been brought up on fraud charges. He's been brought up on money laundering charges, a whole host of charges that this is an Italian citizen named Christian Provizionato, and the core of this story, which as I say is on my Twitter account, is that this person is still there. The deal went so badly that there's somebody inside Mauritania now who's being held hostage, and there's really no clear sense of when he'll get out. I wanted to break away from the story to answer a few more questions here from the audience. Thank you for sending these in. Who leads the world in cybersecurity? Is it the U.S.? The general view is that the U.S. does lead the world in terms of offensive cybersecurity. The U.S. government doesn't have to deal with dealers like Manish Kumar. The U.S. government has computer exploits created for it, by companies like Raytheon and Northrop Grumman. Obviously, a lot of this stuff is built in-house at the NSA, the CIA as well. So we have a lot of capabilities in that regard. However, you talk to any intelligence folks and they'll tell you, Russia is very, very good. Russia is considered our peer in cyberspace in terms of their hacking capabilities. China is very good as well. North Korea actually has a lot of capabilities that's by extension from Russia. There's a lot of collaboration between Russia, China, and North Korea, and Iran as well. I mean, certainly Israel, is a top contender there as well. So the U.S. technically may lead in terms of dollars spent and overall capabilities, but those countries are not far behind. Another question here is, what are the immediate signs when using a smartphone that's been tampered with or hacked? Okay, I like this question because it is there's a practical answer to that question. Watch your data usage. Watch your data usage and your text message usage on your bills. So one of the things that hackers can do is when they get inside your device is they can erase all visible signs that they were there. So it's not like you'll open up your email and it'll say, oh, 2 of you are logged in at the same time. Your phone must be hacked. I mean, that happens sometimes, but skilled hackers will know, to not let that happen. So one of the ways to tell if your phone has been hacked is to look at things like, data charges or any unnecessary or unexpected charges on your bill. Because the fact of the matter is, if a government agency is trying to hack your phone, the consensus view is they're going to be able to do it and you're not going to know. So you kind of have to take that off the table. If you were a target of government surveillance, it's very, very hard to defend against that. There are certain ways to do that we can touch on in a future episode. But for the average person, the best way to tell if you've been hacked is to look at your phone bill, because a lot of mobile phone hackers, what they're after are access to your text messages so that they can subscribe you to premium text messaging services that they then reroute to phones under their control, but you are billed for them and they collect the money. This is a classic scam. It just happens to be on mobile phones, but you'll see that on your phone bill. So don't just throw the phone bill away if the amount is kind of generally in the range of what you expect. Look for any unexpected charges, because that's why people hack mobile phones these days. Next question is, what are your thoughts on Rudy Giuliani's role with cybersecurity? Giuliani's appointment by President Trump to lead cybersecurity for the U.S. government caught a lot of people by surprise, because he doesn't have any expertise in it. Certainly there are lots of members of government and this administration that don't have relevant experience in the areas they've been named to. However, the appointment of Giuliani was very surprising to a lot of people, because cybersecurity is more than just like other areas of technology where it's just selling boxes or selling software and it's very transactional. It's a very active, dynamic space where it's hard even for the most advanced practitioners to stay current. So if you're not technical in this area, just being somebody kind of with a title may not be all that helpful, because you really have to be familiar with the state of the art if you hope to be good at advising the president, either on offense or on defense, and protecting government networks. It's a big job, so you kind of have to be familiar with the state of the art, and again, that's hard even for the most advanced practitioners to keep up with. Next question here is, Trump's tweets have the power to move markets. Do you know what kind of security he uses on his Twitter account, two-factor authentication? I was actually thinking about this just today, because there have been a number of reports that President Trump refuses to give up his old smartphone that he's been using, some kind of Samsung device, where he uses Twitter. We don't know if it's through an app or just through the web interface, but probably fair to assume it's the app, just because it's easier. And Twitter has some security mechanisms like two-factor authentication, which I recommend everybody use if you're worried about security of your email accounts or smartphone accounts. Always use two-factor authentication, because those are text messages you get sent to your phone that tell you, when you're logging in, you've got to enter the special code. Now, that's a great tool for me and you. If you're the President of the United States, that phone is going to be the target of the most advanced attacks on the planet. And there are actually pretty easy ways to get around things like two-factor authentication. One of them that's been demonstrated is calling up your phone company, pretending they're you, and getting your code sent to a different phone number. So you could have two-factor authentication turned on, but if your phone provider, Verizon, AT&T, whoever, is tricked into sending those alerts to a different number, which is social engineering. It's just somebody calling up and getting lucky that the person on the other end of the line is willing to make that change for you. This has happened to Black Lives Matter activists. So it's not a terribly difficult thing to do. So in terms of security, it's generally seen within the security community that he's taking a huge risk by keeping his old phone and using it to tweet out, because as the viewer points out, he has the power to not only move markets with his tweets, but also to start wars. It's there are a whole host of things that Donald Trump can do with his Twitter account that make it, maybe the most powerful Twitter account in the world. Not maybe, most likely the most powerful Twitter account in the world. And to hackers, there's enormous advantage in that, and there could be enormous advantage in simply spying on what he's typing. If you know what Donald Trump is going to tweet, even 2 seconds before it actually posts, because you're spying on his keystrokes on his phone, that can have enormous advantages for people looking to trade on stocks, or nation states trying to get any edge in learning what the President of the United States is thinking. So it's a huge disadvantage for him to keep that phone from a security perspective. We're getting some great questions today. Thank you for all of you writing in. What will it look like if someone steals my information via my Wi-Fi connection at home? Wi-Fi is tricky because often they're public Wi-Fi settings. I'm not sure if this viewer is referring to a public or a private Wi-Fi, network. The problem with Wi-Fi is there are tools to scan for, individuals who are sitting on your network capturing traffic. It takes some technical expertise to do that. So in general, what I advise people to do is, the easiest thing for a consumer to do is to look at which web pages you're using. And if you're using web pages that have HTTPS in the address bar, and in some browsers it's characterized by a green padlock, or the entire address bar will be green, that means that any information you send from your browser to the website is encrypted in transit. Now, it doesn't mean it's hack-proof. If somebody's sitting on your computer or sitting on the server, of the website you're interacting with, they can capture that information. But that is the most surefire way to protect your information on Wi-Fi networks, including public Wi-Fi. I mean, public Wi-Fi is not the safest thing in the world. However, it has gotten safer to use in recent years because many, many websites, Google and Yahoo and all the major banks use encryption on their web pages. That means even if you are interacting with that bank on a hacked Wi-Fi internet, they can't see what you're sending. So that's actually the easiest way to protect your information. On Wi-Fi networks, there is one catch, I'll say, and I've talked to some technical experts about this. Information you're entering on those pages will be encrypted, usernames, passwords, things like that, but pages you're visiting will not be. So if you are, and this is really important to note, if you're searching for sensitive content in a country where the internet is monitored, and if you Google keywords and Google will take you to those pages, the keywords you enter into Google, those will be protected, but the page that you visit will not be. So somebody monitoring that traffic will see what you're searching for, even if those connections are secured. So that's a really important point, and one that is worth remembering if your traffic is being monitored. Last question here, and then we're going to wrap up for this week. Is hacking private companies part of this cyber warfare? For example, Sony hacks or the Xbox hacks. Well, two questions really in there. The Sony hack, was attributed by the U.S. government back to North Korea. So we will take that at face value. Some security experts, challenged that attribution. They said there wasn't enough information, but let's just assume that that information is accurate. The hack of a private company, if it aligns with a nation-state interest, is something that actually happens all the time. Sony was a watershed in that we saw the information get leaked, and we saw real economic damage to the company because of that. And we've talked to government experts who said that it really provoked a round of discussions within the intelligence community in the U.S. about how do we classify these companies, because nobody in the government had ever thought to classify a company like Sony as a piece of critical infrastructure for the U.S. It's an entertainment company. They make movies and TV shows. They're not a power utility. They're not a water utility. They're not a bank. But increasingly, the government is being forced to reconsider some of those ideas because, if you're able to cause significant economic harm to a major, U.S. corporation, that is a matter of national security, and that is of interest to certain nation states. Banks are clearly, very high on the list, because if you take down a bank or you take down their money moving systems, even for a short period of time, you're talking about economic disruption of kind of the highest magnitude. So with that, we're going to wrap up here. Again, I want to put in one more plug for our story, the Mauritania exploit. Again, you can see it on my Twitter account, @JordanR1000. It's a great read. I won't spoil the ending for you, but there's more to the story than we've outlined here. And as always, thank you to everybody who wrote in with questions. We always appreciate getting them. Please feel free to message me offline as well, and we'll try to get to any questions that come in that way next week. So with that, we'll sign off here. Thanks to everybody for watching. We'll see you next week on Digital Defense. Should be clear.